All right. Welcome, everybody. So it's Regan Archibald, and we are talking about peptides and holiday stress. And so I don't know if any of you have ever had holiday stress before, but I can tell you this Thanksgiving, one of the things my wife said is she said, look, we're not going to have any more holiday stress. So we're just going to do it as a family. And we bypassed, we just did it with she and I and our kids. And so sometimes you do have to kind of get creative when it comes to the holidays. And I think all of us have been there where we're wondering what we're doing at that party or why we're there. But I want to create some context around some ways you can actually really enjoy your holidays and dive in deeper and make the holidays the best time of your life and make some memorable experiences. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about how holidays can be good for your heart, but also some of the dangers of that. And then system, undue stress, jumping ways that really, and what generosity and when you've got love and connections. And so one of the things research has always showed is that eating with other people can be very helpful. And I do enjoy a meal with other people. I love connecting, breaking bread, so to speak, with other people. Like, is your bread gluten-free and is it organic? No, I don't ask them that, but well, I do. And it depends on who it is. So, okay, so let's jump in. Heart disease. So one of the biggest killers in America is heart disease still. In the United States right now, one of the most interesting things happened in about 2 years ago exactly, the end of 2020 or end of 2017. What happened is the American Heart Association, the president of the American Heart Association in his 50s had a heart attack. And that's kind of weird because he's sort of telling all of America and the world at large how to mitigate any damage in the heart, but yet he himself had a heart attack and he had the best cardiovascular care that anyone in the world could have. So it was kind of interesting. And so what they did, almost as a reaction, is they created what's called a pre-hypertension. And pre-hypertension is where if your blood pressure is off by, if you go 130 over 80 for, 2 or 3 visits, then doctors cannot prescribe you a hypertensive med. We've had statins. The new published study showed that statins actually increase your lifespan by 3 days. Yes, you heard me correctly, 3 days over the course of a lifetime of taking a statin. The research shows that it only extends your life 3 days. And so I look at that and I say, well, think about how much time people are spending filling their statin drug, going to the pharmacy, going to their doctor, kind of pining over what your cholesterol numbers look like. But that's going to take up a lot more than 3 days of your life. And it actually, if you look at what statins do, they can cause brain fog because your brain is made with cholesterol. Your brain has a large portion of it, about 17% of your brain is cholesterol. And so it's like, well, you can end up with brain fog. The other thing that can happen is you can have muscle fatigue and aches. And as someone said on Instagram, the cost of statins is substantial. And yes, the profitability in statins is $1 billion industry, but it's not solving any problems. And so 1 out of 3 people, 3 adults suffer from cardiovascular disease in the United States. That is nearly 100 million people in the United States. Heart disease, cardiovascular disease kills over 2,200 people every single day in the United States. That's a death every 40 seconds. Someone is going to die of this. Look at these. One of the things that we found is there are studies that show that there's ways that you can mitigate some of the damage of cardiovascular disease. So in the holidays, it's a great season to open your heart and really connect with people. But interestingly enough, if you look at the research, the day that we have the highest incidences of heart disease is, you probably guessed it, is Christmas. And then the second most common is New Year's. And then the third most is on Mondays. And so Monday mornings, we have a higher prevalence of heart disease. So it's because there's heart attacks. And that's because these are more stressful times in our life. So the holidays, one of the things I would encourage you to do is keep your stress levels down and don't take things quite so seriously, because the holidays can be just a beautiful time in your life. And I want this holiday season, I want you to kind of frame it in a way that we're actually, not only is it a holiday season where we are, entering into a new year, but we're actually entering into a new decade of life. And so that's where, if you can keep your stress levels down, you'll mitigate a lot of the damage that can cause cardiovascular disease. And then I don't want you to be one of those statistics where you could have a heart attack on Christmas Day. And so one of the ways you can treat your heart very kindly is to get stem cells intravenously. Now, here's a study, and Cade, welcome to the show. We're talking about stress and the holidays. So good to have you here.
Sorry I'm late, everybody. I was taking care of a couple things, but yeah, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, y'all.
All right, so in this study, this is where it's in a 2017 study, they did umbilical cord mesenchymal stem cells, and they administered them IV. And all these patients, these 15 patients, had chronic heart failure with reduced ejection fraction. And only the umbilical cord, they had a randomized double blind. So this is a double blind study. And only the umbilical cord mesenchymal stem cell treated group exhibited significant improvements in left ventricular ejection fraction at 3, 6, and 12 months of follow-up assessed on the ECG. So this is pretty powerful, because if you look at the number one killer, it's still heart disease. Your statin drugs, the hypertensive medications, they aren't going to solve the problem. You've got to get your heart working better. And so this is an exciting study, because it shows, and this is from what they did at follow-up. Another quote from the study, they said at all follow-up times, the stem cell treated patients displayed improvements of New York Heart Association functional class versus baseline, and Minnesota Living with Heart Failure questionnaire versus baseline. So and there was no significant differences in adverse events in the placebo versus the treatment group. So it wasn't like they got the treatment and yes, their heart works better, but they ended up having like kidney failure. It was actually very healthy across the board. And it is something that I would consider, give yourself the gift of a new life in your heart, because anytime you get stem cell IV, one of the first stops they're going to make is they go to the lungs, and then they go right into the heart. And it's a great way of opening up the heart, calming down the immune system so that you can mitigate some of the stress from the holidays. And so right now in the holiday season, we will have a Christmas special going on that should.
Uh-oh. Regan, I think we may have lost him.
Is it next week?
Oh, there you are.
Okay, am I back? Okay, sorry,
You're
my
back.
internet went unstable, but yeah, we will have a holiday special for stem cell IVs, and it's going to be $500 off. And so when does that start, Kate? Is that the 17th? I don't remember, my dates are the 16th, or is it before that?
If you call, even as soon as today, you can call, and if you reference this, we'll still honor it. But yeah, it starts next week.
Next week. And we had really fun on our Cyber Monday. It was crazy how many of you took advantage of that. So congratulations. But the other thing that you want to look at when it comes to your heart is you want to look at using peptides. And so peptides are, you've heard me talk about these a lot, but peptides are these protein structures that carry either microRNA or they carry RNA messengers. And so the RNA is what helps with the translation and transcription of cells. And so there's a peptide called Thymus Alpha1. And this peptide actually in the placebo studies, the double blind, it improved immune modulation and improved overall health. and it had fewer side effects than the placebo group did with the autoimmune groups they've tested. But the very first thing that it does is it works on the T helper cells. And so these T helper cells, they promote IL-2 and IFNY production. So this is really important because that turns down some of the chronic inflammatory markers. It helps if you have any risk of a viral infection. So instead of going and getting the flu shot because you say, well, I'm going to be around my family all, in the holidays, and they're going to have their kids, and kids are like petri dishes, and every time I'm around kids, they get sick. Whatever the story is in your head, well, there's ways of mitigating that and actually boosting your immune system with Thymus Alpha1. And so you can either get a prescription for that we can write out for you, or you can even, next time you're in the office, we can do an injection of Thymus Alpha1. And it's also can be used in conjunction with vaccines. And so let's dive into the thymosins. The thymosins were discovered in the mid-60s. They were discovered at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine by Dr. Goldstein. And what he looked at is he said, well, if I could create a family of biologically active peptides that had a significant role in immunity, then I could actually solve some of these patients' problems who aren't responding to typical care. And so that's where Thymus Alpha1 came from. And so Thymus Alpha1, you can use it in Epstein-Barr viruses. You can use it if you have Lyme. You can use it with any type of cancer. You can use it autoimmune. It can be, like I mentioned earlier, a vaccine adjunct where it actually improves the outcome of the inflammation, and it's a general anti-aging. So if you're like, and you've got a goal to have a lot of runway in life so you can get all your goals accomplished but not be stressed about it, then Thymus Alpha1 is your go-to. Thymus Alpha1, it's also known as Zadaxin, I believe I probably mispronounced that, as a pharmaceutical agent. So of course they make it as hard to pronounce as possible. But this falls under the orphan drug status in 2013, and it's approved in over 30 countries. So very safe. So here's some of the things that Thymus Alpha1 can do. It can help in relapsing, remitting MS. It helps drive B cell dysregulation. It also can help reduce pro-inflammatory cytokines. It enhances the production of B cell regulatory subsets. And it's also, one of the most safest, easiest to administer peptides, but unfortunately it is an injection, but it's just sub-Q. Doesn't hurt much at all. Okay, so that's one of the great peptides you can use for your holiday season. The other thing that will help you enjoy your holiday season more is actually just thinking about your brain and how your brain works. So you have these emotions, you've got happiness, you've got love, you've got anxiety, stress, depression. Let's talk about those, because Kate, how many holiday seasons have you gone through every single one of these emotions multiple times?
Like pretty much all of them.
Any holiday?
Maybe I'm hoping there's at least a couple in there where you don't have the depression, but it's always like, even as a kid, you get like the buildup, and then if you didn't get what you wanted, or someone else got something cooler, you're like, you have that despair.
Right.
So it is a crazy time of emotion, roller coasters, for adults and for children.
Yeah, totally. And that's what I'm going to ask you guys. How many of you actually have, how many of you have more stress during the holidays, and how many of you have more relaxation? I know Kate and I just got back from Las Vegas. We put on a Go Wellness event over there, and I taught all weekend long. And I remember flying home on Sunday just relieved, because the bulk of my work was done for the year. And it was just like, okay, I'm going to be really happy this holiday. And so if you look at it, well, if you want to create happiness, it's a choice. And happiness, what researchers have found is that there's got to be an increase in serotonin in your brain. So one of the serotonin foods, one of the precursors is a nice little amino acid called tryptophan. And that can be triggered. You can make you sleepy if you take too much of it. but tryptophan actually helps you stay connected, it's one of your leadership molecules. Dopamine is found, so happiness, high levels of serotonin will make you feel really happy. The thing that helps you feel full of love is dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. So some of the best ways you can get oxytocin is give lots of hugs. And so this Christmas, I'm going to challenge each one of you, or if you're at the grocery store, just grab the person in line, just give them a big, okay, now maybe not, and maybe not a big, okay, that might be kind of awkward, but hug your family, hug people more than you typically hug them. I try and hug my kids every morning and every night, and my wife every morning and every night, and it just feels good to give hugs. Kate, you like giving hugs. What do you notice when you give more hugs? What's your day like?
Oh, it just makes your day way better. Feel better. It's like you can't have a hug unless it's like a sad, like a comforting hug. You can't have a hug without a smile.
Yeah.
And I think if you're smiling, I don't know I don't know the exact physiology or the chemical side of it, but if you're like, it's impossible to smile and to really like have like super, I guess you can fake smile, but like if it's a true smile, it just like it lightens your whole load of stress or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, actually you get more serotonin. Keep smiling, Cade. Don't stop. You get more dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin when you smile at somebody. This is a beautiful thing. So smile more to strangers. You don't have to necessarily hug them. If you're a man, you might get mugged.
Yeah, you might get arrested.
Yeah, don't do anything weird, but just smile. I mean, there's actually a study, not that we need a study to prove this, and I've talked about this before, but just the fact of talking to strangers, actually people are happier if you talk to strangers. Cade and I, our dad is a genius at talking to strangers.
He's the best. Like he'll take an Uber ride and sitting there an extra hour just BSing with the guy,
chatting with everybody. So it's pretty cool. So anxiety comes when you have very low dopamine. And so if you think about getting some dopamine foods, one of the peptides for dopamine is tyrosine. And tyrosine is one of the precursors for creating more dopamine in your body. Selenium is another substance. But the dopamine food that we have, so we have serotonin food, dopamine food, GABA food. GABA food actually helps you produce more oxytocin as well. But the anxiety is something, be aware of that before it really starts to get out of control. Once it spirals out of control, it's hard to stop it. But if you have anxiety, especially in the holidays, get some dopamine. So one of the things you can do to get a nice little dopamine rush is I like to be reading a really fascinating book over the holidays. And so if you don't have any good books, I would recommend read Ray Dalio's book called Principles. If you want to know, it has an app where you can create your own principles. Think about how much dopamine you get if you knew all of your principles and the things that really drive you. And so this is what the app looks like. For those of you who can see it there, it's that Principles app with the little swoop. It's an awesome way of just getting your brain engaged and then having some rewards. So don't get lazy over the holidays. Exercise more. I look at the stats and I'm like, the average American gains 5 pounds over the holidays. Some stats say 10 pounds. I think they're exaggerating, but that's because people get all lazy. And I look at holidays, I'm like, man, this is where I have more time off work. I can exercise more. I can do more things with my body. I can put my body under stress because, it's no big deal if I'm hanging out with my family and I say, hey, I want to have a nap. I worked out like a beast this morning. It's no problem. If you have high levels of stress during the holidays, you've got high levels of norepinephrine and epinephrine. So once again, this is cortisol. So cut back on your caffeine intake. If you have high levels of stress, push it to later in the day. Go back to my cortisol webinar, and it's on our YouTube page, and you can learn some things you can do to fix your adrenals. And then if you have depression, this is where you have low dopamine and, yes, low serotonin. And so if you get depressed over the holidays, exercise is one of the best things you can do. If you're out of town, you don't have family that you're connecting with, if it's like an off year, then, do something active, but also do something of service. Get out in the community and find out, events that are going on, see a good movie. You can only read for so long, but these are things that can help snap you out of it, because the holidays, one of the biggest things you can do to increase your dopamine, your serotonin, your oxytocin, and just have happiness and love is generosity. And so your brain, the healthier your brain is, the better you're going to feel. And so generosity is what fuels a lot of that. So it doesn't mean, generosity doesn't mean like, oh, I'm going to buy someone a big gift and like just blow my budget. I see my wife, sometimes she gets so stressed around the holidays, and I say, well, what's the worst thing that could happen if we don't give gifts to anybody? And she said, well, I just feel really bad. I'm like, well, why would you feel bad about it? Because there's other ways you can be generous. And yes, I love giving gifts, and I really appreciate the work that she puts into it. But generosity, there's ways you can be generous just by smiling at somebody or having a really in-depth conversation where you're listening, because the number one resource that's the most scarce in humans right now is attention. So imagine if you just gave someone your attention. That would be a lot more powerful than you having a gift that's all wrapped up, and they'll forget about that gift, but that attention is priceless. So the other thing you want to do is just think about like more oxytocin. Oxytocin is fed by attachment, and so dopamine's fueled by attraction. So if you have a significant other in your life, make it a loving time. Have more sex. Have some more fun in the bedroom this way. Give them more hugs, and I can guarantee you that's a way you can much more stress-free holiday season. And so here's your final tips on hugs. So Kate, did you know that a hug that's 20 seconds is kind of the magic number for really getting that neurotransmitter oxytocin to release?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a long hug if you've never met the person.
So it's a little excessive. Someone might be like, duh.
Just let them know, hey, are you open to me getting like just a little oxytocin from each other, and let's hug.
We need to get some oxytocin going today. So this hug might be a little long.
Going to be a little long, but one of our good friends, Ryan, you remember, he used to give hugs, and he would just say, wait, and he would just hold, and then, okay, you can go. And so I love that, because oxytocin is a natural antidepressant. And oxytocin, it increases your generosity, what we were just talking about, empathy and trust. It reduces fear, stress, depression, and physical pain. It lowers blood pressure. It improves sleep. It helps us bond with others, and may even decrease our tolerance for addictive drugs. And so this holiday season, what I'm going to encourage everybody to do is give more hugs. Yes, there's some novel things you can do as far as treatments go with stem cell IVs for the heart. You can do Thymus Alpha1, but at the core, give hugs. It's really critical. And if you're looking to enhance the overall, your overall look, your feel, then we're going to be hosting a cool party on just like how you can use peptides on your skin, for your hair. We're going to do a little aesthetics party here coming up. So make sure you stay tuned next week. We'll be announcing that, and get in here for your end of year, end of decade special with stem cell IVs. I think you'll really love it. Do some wellness, invest in your health this holiday season, and just can't thank you enough for being part of this community. We really love and appreciate everything that you guys bring to these webinars. And next year we've got a very special new lineup of topics and events coming up. So really can't thank you enough for being part of our community. Love you guys.
Love it. Well, we'll be back one more time this year. And then, so I think it'll be just me and Aaron running next week. Reagan's got some trainings that he'll be he'll
I'll
be
in
at next week.
Toronto. Yeah.
And then we'll be taking off Christmas Day and New Year's Day, if that's all right with everyone else. All right. Well, love you guys so much. We'll be back next week. We'll see you guys.
Bye-bye.